In this week's video, we take a trip to Cambridge Vintage Machinery Sale. With over 300 tractors on offer, we have to be a little bit selective about what we're going to show you. Considering they only made 1,350 of these, I was surprised to see 4 Ferguson Browns on offer. This nicely restored very early model, serial number 5, stood out for me as being the best of the bunch. It retained its original steel wheels and its original Coventry Climax engine. Next in line was this Overtime, a Waterloo boy in all but paint colour. Interestingly, Harry Ferguson was the original importer of the Overtime into Ireland, and some would argue this was the tractor he developed his original 3-point linkage on. This Ferguson 35X and its neighbouring Ferguson 135 were very nicely restored and went on to make good money in the sale. This Malem track conversion on a Fordson Dexter was looking for a new home. We see more and more of these in the UK now, but I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they were originally imported here. And another import to the UK, this impressive looking Rumley oil pull. By the 1930s, John Fowler's steam engine production was slowly drawing to a close. They started to produce the FD2, FD3 and FD4 crawler tractors. I thought this FD3 was a particularly nice example. A Greens road roller with a standard Fordson power unit and a diesel engine transplant. And standing next to the Greens roller, this Aveling. At the time I arrived, they seemed to be working on a fuel problem. This reasonably early Mercedes Unimog looked like it had had quite a hard life. As usual at Cambridge Sale, we have a number of steam engines on offer. This Marshall roller was quite a tidy thing. I'd be interested to see in your comments what you feel of this John Fowler Showman's road locomotive conversion. Conversions are always a touchy subject with steam engine enthusiasts. The next tractor we arrive at is this Ford 7000. I think it's quite an early version of this tractor, at the time the biggest tractor Ford's produced. Standing next to it is this very impressive Ford TW15. And then a later cousin of the 7000, the 7610. And then we arrived at this TS115, a very tidy and well presented tractor. I'm told it had come in from abroad specially to be sold at Cambridge. The Turner Yeoman of England tractor was always a very impressive machine, but sadly it developed a reputation for poor reliability and was very much a story of what might have been. Our next tractor is Ferguson Brown number 4. It looks like it needs quite a bit of attention, and it'll definitely need a steering wheel. And if you're looking for a classic you can take to work, how about this John Deere 6400? This original condition Fordson Super Major was quite an eye-catcher. I wasn't the only person that thought so. It made £12,500 in the auction. If you were looking for a Mercedes MB track to restore, this would have been a good place to start. There were 5 on offer, from a 1300 down to an MB 900. I often find myself drawn to an 80s John Deere with an SGB cab on it. This 2850 was no exception. It was a nicely restored tractor. And next to the John Deere was this Muirhill 121. Muirhill's approach to modifying the standard Ford tractor back end to facilitate an output shaft for the four-wheel drive always looks quite a logical way of going about it to me. And moving down the line just one more tractor, we come to this Fordson with the Traxxon track conversion on it. Traxxon were based in Milwaukee, USA, and started business in 1922, mainly to produce track conversions for Fordson tractors. They went on to build a number of other attachments for other makes of tractor. This John Deere Lindemann crawler uses John Deere transmission and engine and tracks manufactured by Lindemann. The Farmall Super Cub, complete with its reversible plough attachment. I always like to see row crop tractors like this with some of the attachments that were specifically designed for them. Case International 1455 must have been around 30 years old, but it looked ready to go to work. Once again, somebody else thought so too. It made over £30,000 in the sale. When I put together my David Brown story video, I completely forgot to add an example of the David Brown 2D. This looks like a tidy example. It was a bit of a special machine, and they worked for many years because there was very little to replace them. Unusual in that it had a compressed air lift mechanism for the hoe. Very popular in Europe, but not so much in the UK, the Fiat 850. Produced in the UK between 1968 and 1972, this International 634 was quite nicely restored. If you're after a new project, look no further. One careful owner, partly dismantled, ripe for restoration. Maybe you prefer a Leyland. This one looked like it had been part of another machine. If you didn't like the £10,000 price tag of the original condition Fordson Major I showed earlier, what about this one? Another tractor I missed in my David Brown video, a high clearance David Brown. The reduction gear in the end of the axle lent itself to being rotated by 90 degrees and increasing the clearance. The unmistakable sound of the International BMD. These tractors were available with or without hydraulics and 3-point linkage. This particular example doesn't have the 3-point linkage. The Massey Harris 745, built in Kilmarnock, UK, and using the Perkins L4 engine. I think this was a Clayson M80, quite nice unrestored. The County Super 6. Considering the price some counties make at auction, this seemed quite cheap at just over £17,000. This 1930s Schneider crawler looked like quite an interesting project. Its petrol engine had been replaced with a Renault engine, which as you can see doesn't fit particularly well. I presume the pallet behind contains the original engine. I would think this Nuffield 1060 is quite unusual. It has a Bray 4-wheel drive conversion fitted to it. A nice example of Fordson N with an early roadless track conversion. I imagine you'd be worn out after a day pulling on these levers. Another unusual tractor for the UK is this Hurleman, manufactured in Switzerland. The B&B President, built in the 1950s and powered by a Morris 8 side valve car engine. This beautifully restored transitional Fordson created a lot of interest. In 1932, Ford moved production from Cork in Ireland to Dagenham in the UK. during the move they assembled a small number of tractors here in the UK from Irish parts, and this is one of them. We'll take a quick look at the auction, and we'll start with the Fowler Showman's conversion. It didn't reach a price that they were prepared to sell it at in the auction, but I think it sold afterwards. Now we'll take a look at the Marshall Road Roller.
We're going 50,000, 45, 45, well 40,000 shorty, 40,000, 40,000, where are we going to be 40,000, 35, start me shorty, 35, 30,000, low enough shorty, 30,000, thank you sir, 30,000 I have been here, at 30,000, pound on there, to 30 on bid, down to 30,000, at 30,000, pound on bid there, to 30 bid, at 30,000 bid there, to 30 bid now, down to 30,000, at 30,000, pound on bid there, to 30 on bid.
Once again it was struggling to make the kind of money they were expecting, but it did sell afterwards, I understand. Let's move on and take a look at the overtime tractor being sold.
Very interesting early tractor, the 1915/16 overtime Model R. One of the oldest working examples in the UK. Recent work since purchase in 2021 from us. It's been a full repaint, some new replacement castings as well. Running yesterday, running and driving. You'll have seen the social media as well, hopefully. There we go, the overtime Model R. What do we say for this one, ladies and gentlemen? Beautifully restored example. There we go, and the recent work on it as well. No VAT, running and driving as well. One of the oldest examples in the UK as well. There we go, put me showing some around where we're going to be for the overtime Model R. Put me in some around 45 for it, shorty. 45,000, 45,000, 42, for £40,000 shorty, 40,000. Where we're going to be 40,000. I've got 30,000 online here now. Let's have 30,000. At 30,000 pound, I've got there to 30 bid, at 30,000 bid there to 30 on bid. At 30,000, at 30,000 pound on bid there to 30 bid, at 30,000 pound for the overtime showing here now. At 30,000 pound, I've got there to 30 on bid. At 30,000, at 30,000 pound on bid there to 30 bid, at 31. 31, at 31, at 31,000 pound on bid here at 31. 31, at 31, at 31,000 bid there to 31, 32. 32, at 32, right hand here at 32. At 32,000 bid there to 32. 32 for the overtime here, at 32,000 bid there to 32, 32 never 32, at 32,000 bid there to 32, 32 never 32, at 32,000 bid there to 32, is there 3 now, 33. 33 on the telephone now, at 33, you're out online, out on the field, at 33, I'm in 33, 34, 34, back online at 34, you're out, Jack at 34, at 34, 35, 35, never 35, at 35, I'm in there to 35, 35, never 35, at 35, I'm in there to 35, on the telephone this time, at 35, I'm in there to 35, 36, 36, 37, 37, 37, at 37, I'm in there to 37, 38, 38, at 38, at 38, come on Matt, 38, I'm bid over to 38, at 38,000, I'm bid there to 38, 38, over to 38, at 38,000 pound, it's on the telephone then, at 38,000, I'm bid at 38, Matthew, at 38, I'm bid there to 38, at 38,000, I'm bid, at 38, over to 38, at 38,000 pound, I'm bid here at 38, it's on the telephone, 39, 39, at 39, over to 39, at 39, 40,000 a bid, at 40,000 now, over to 40,000, at over to 40,000 pound, it's on the telephone then, at 40,000 pound, I got there to 40,000 pound, putting it in the market and selling today, at 40,000 pound, I'm over to 40 bid, Matthew, you're out. At 40,000 a bid, over to 40,000 pound, but I sell on the telephone then, at 40,000, 40, yes, 40,000 pound, I sell on the telephone, at 40,000 pound, I got there to 40 on bid, over to 40,000, at 40,000 pound on bid, then to 40 bid, the hammer's up. It's selling right now then, at 40,000 pound, it goes right hand and done then, at 40,000 pounds. Your man Jack, 40,000, thank you.
I would think that was a pretty good price for an overtime tractor. Let me know in the comments what you think. That's all for this week. We'll see you again next time with another video of Tractors at Work.